Good afternoon and welcome to Chat UTD. The day after a semi-final when we've got through should be a day when you feel happy, feel euphoric that you're going to be going back to a final, but for me personally it doesn't feel like that, and I think reading between the lines most United fans feel it's like a hollow victory yesterday, and symbolic of the deep-rooted problems that are at the club, but I think symbolic maybe that this manager has run his course at the club. That's the way I feel, anyway. I've never been Ten Hag out, and I don't have to categorise myself as to whether or not I feel a manager should go or stay, unless I feel that I want to. And with Mourinho, I wanted him out for months before he went. With Van Gaal, I wanted him out for months before he went. It was different with Ollie, maybe because of my affection towards him as a player, but I didn't think he was the right person, but I wouldn't be vitriolic about it, shouting it from the rooftops. And Ten Hag's the one that's probably I've been the most patient with, because I feel like there's a lot of mitigating circumstances as to why this season we've struggled as much as we have. That being said, I think there's always a tipping point, and for me that tipping point was yesterday. That performance was appalling in the last 20 minutes. Up to that point, we did everything the way you'd want to do it. So you can't say it was a terrible performance over the whole 90 minutes or 120 minutes, because it wasn't. But to collapse so spectacularly is just, again, that's the point, again, is unforgivable. And it's not, some people have said, a manager should be within his rights to make some changes at 70 minutes when you're 3-0 up against a team from the Championship, or whatever it was when he made the substitutions. And Garnacho and Mainu came off. Two young lads. Yeah, you should be able to bring them off. I completely agree with that. He's not, I don't hope he's not done that kind of like tactically, like, oh, they're having a poor game and I've brought them off. It's not like it was 1-0 and he brought them off and then we went 2-1 down. We were 3-0 up and he might well have thought to himself, they're young lads, Wembley's a big pitch, big occasion. We've got a game in midweek, not that really matters that much. So maybe he's thinking, save their legs a little bit. It's only because we ended up conceding goals that people even really would say anything about that. You should be able to bring a couple of players off when you're 3-0 up in a situation like that. And one of the issues is the squad isn't good enough. So when you bring on other players, they're substandard and they're not good enough to see a game out, even against Coventry. And I feel for Ten Hag in that respect. So you've got two options. Don't make the substitutions, just because your team can't be relied upon to get you over the line. Your squad can't be relied upon to get you over the line. Or if you make the substitutions, I suppose you go really pragmatic and just see it out, because you know this team's got a tendency to just do inexplicable things. And what we saw yesterday, make no doubt about it, was inexplicable. It was horrendous. And my issue is that it's the same thing that keeps happening over and over and over again. And I think the surrendering of a lead and the surrendering of winning situations is something personally I find difficult to tolerate, because I just think you don't need a brilliant team of players to hold on to a lead. Sam Allardyce used to go in and do it all the time with crap teams that he'd get at the bottom of the league, and he'd go and play really boring football. They'd get a lead and then just know how to defend it. And that's how he had such a good reputation of teams not getting relegated, or him saving teams from relegation. So it's one of the most simple things to do in football, hold on to a lead. You don't have to be brilliant to do it. One of the hardest things is to get in the lead in the first place. And we can do that. We've wrestled back some tricky... we've wrestled ourselves back from some tricky situations this season. The Champions League, we've been in winning positions at tough places where we've done really, really well to get ourselves back in games and then just collapsed. It's cost us in the Champions League. In the league recently, the Brentford game, the Chelsea game, obviously, I don't know the statistics, but I imagine it's pretty damning, And as I said in my video yesterday, at 2-0 at half time, I said to my mate that don't rule out us doing something ridiculous here, and that was at 2-0. So when you're 3-0 up with 20 minutes to go, the game's over. It's Olay football. It's keep the ball. Just do your basics. I'm not having that. You can't bring off Garnacho and Mainu and defend a 3-0 lead. And yes, part of that's the players, but that has to be the manager as well, and the instructions he's giving them, and how open we just continue to be. Just pass the ball about, especially against a team, no disrespect, from the division below us. Just keep ball. Bore the pants off the fans for the last 20 minutes, that's fine, but just pass the ball about. Ericsson, who came on, is a master at that. Just possession-based football. Just pass the ball. You don't need legs at 3-0 up. You just pass the ball about. So there's the fact that it keeps happening over and over again is an issue. The other issue is his persistence with Rashford, and he continued to play him. And if I was bringing someone off, it wouldn't be Garnacho, it'd be Rashford. And I think that's... You could see, I believe anyway, on Garnacho's face as he's walking off, the injustice of it. And I think there's probably a little bit of it. I don't know. I would suspect there's a bit of a split in that dressing room. Because if you're a young kid and you play in a similar position to a guy that's the highest paid player, who is becoming an increasing elephant in the room, as a young kid, you're probably thinking to yourself, what's going on here? And these lads now, they will question authority. They will do little subtle things that they know are going to get a little bit of attention. So he's liked a tweet from Mark Goldbridge last weekend and then unliked it. But he liked the tweet that said basically senior players that have just let the team and the manager down all year are getting preferential treatment over Garnacho. He's liked that tweet. So whether he's disliked it or not, or unliked it, he's liked it in the first place. He knows what he's doing. He knows who it's in reference to. When he walks off the pitch and he's shaking his head discreetly, or, it wasn't like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm being brought off, but it's just a little. And he knows that the camera's panned on him, and his jawline, his pronounced cheekbones that he's got are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And he walks off, but he doesn't kick a water bottle. He does shake Anthony's hand. He does shake Ten Hag's hand. So he's not doing anything overtly controversial, but he's let it be known by his body language, by his facial expressions, I'm not impressed by this. And it's not just, I think, that he's been brought off. It's that he's been brought off and Rashford stays on. And I've long since said, symbolically, what does that say to other players when he's playing every week? Not only is he playing every week, but other players are being brought off before him when he is, as someone said yesterday, a ghost. And I repeat what I said yesterday. There is nothing that he does that a functional, fit League One winger can't do. Nothing. So why is he playing? You watch Ahmad come on the pitch and just drives at people, has loads about him, has loads of energy, has that low centre of gravity. He's difficult to budge off the ball. He sometimes runs down blind alleys, but then in fairness to him, he corrects himself and just has a little look back and says, okay, let's just recycle the ball. If I can't get out of this blind alley, I'll recycle the ball. His ball retention is far better than Rashford's. He's quick, just like Rashford is. He can dribble, he can run at people, he's got a good shot on him. What does Rashford have that Ahmad doesn't have? Other than a PR team and a ridiculous contract? Nothing. So this needs to be called out, and whether or not Ten Hag has got his hands tied behind his back here, maybe he has, it's going to cost him his job. I can't remember who it was last night, but I think it was Steve Howson might have put it. He said Anthony's going to cost Ten Hag his job. What are you on about? How's Anthony going to cost Ten Hag his job? What a ridiculous comment. when, again, the elephant in the room is Rashford. How dare you call out Anthony, who's had a year and a half, nearly 2 years at the club, and okay, hasn't settled in particularly well, and probably is a little bit of a tempestuous character. Yesterday he's giving it the big one after we win on penalties. I get it. He's probably not the most likable in some respects for some people, but it's not. This is not an Anthony. Just a ridiculous statement to make. It's Rashford who's going to get Ten Hag sacked, and it's his inability to see out games. Because, as I say, I'm not a Premier League manager, but I don't think that's that difficult. I think it's one of the most simple things in the game to do, to see out a game, and when you're in the lead, and he can't do it. So for me, yesterday was a turning point, and I remain very, very worried in terms of who is it going to be that we bring in. There isn't any stellar names out there. The only one probably is Zidane. I don't think Zidane has any interest in the United job whatsoever. Reading between the lines, I don't think he didn't want to play for us when he was a player, and he could have done. He's never said particularly positive things about United. I've always felt he's not been particularly warm about United when people have spoken about us to him, and he's been asked his opinion on it. He's talked about Scholes in a glowing light. That's about it. But by all accounts, he was learning English, but I don't know. He's the only one. He's the only manager that's available that I would say is like a one that would pique my interest. Where you go, oh, flipping out, we've got Zidane. I'd be really excited about it. I would be open to the fact that it might not work. But look at his, it's Zinedine Zidane. That's all. I don't know. Sometimes you don't need to explain it, do you? It's Zinedine Zidane. Look at the guy. Look at his presence. Look at his aura. Look at what he's done in the game, both as a player and as a manager, albeit in very unique circumstances. Does he have the minerals to rebuild a team? Probably not. But would it be an exciting appointment anyway? Yeah, without a doubt. But he's not going to come. So your others are all huge risks. But having said all that, is that a reason then for Ten Hag to stay? Just because there isn't an outstanding candidate, is the main thing we need to think is there a candidate who can do a better job than him? That's what we need to think, and that's what they've got to weigh up. And at the moment, it's basics that he's not getting right, and I would argue that most competent managers would be able to do better than what he's doing. So I don't think that necessarily means that he's been bad all the way through, that he's not a good manager, that he wasn't right for us at one point, because I think he was. But with the circumstances as they are now, it's not happening for him. And, you see a lot of people saying, oh, God help us in the final, it could be 5 or 6-0. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the final will be a completely different game. It'll be tight, it'll be cagey. We'll probably have to park the bus. If we've got some players back, I don't really know who, maybe Varane, hopefully. Is there any outside chance, Martinez? No, probably not. Shaw, maybe. Other than that, really, people talk about injuries, but the main players that we would play are pretty much fit. His choice of players isn't right, and we need Varane and probably Shaw back. So if those two get back, does that give us a better chance? Yeah. But I think regardless of whether we win the cup or not, we've seen enough this season. In the build up to Christmas, which was horrendous, really, it was such a poor first half of the season. And then obviously we had our mini recovery, but in recent weeks it's been unacceptable, and I'd say probably 75% of this season has been unacceptable. And when you've got a new regime coming in, probably wanting their own man anyway, that's not enough to save his job. If it was the Glazers that were still running the ship, and maybe they still are, I don't know. I'm yet to see anything convincing from Ineos to suggest it's any different, but we have to give them time. If it's the Glazers still running it, then they haven't got a clue what they're doing. So I'd be more inclined to support Ten Hag almost out of pig-headedness to say up yours to the Glazers, because it's them that's caused so many of the problems that we've got. But with a new group of people moving it forward, I think that he loses that out. that out ball is gone. So no vitriol from me, no Ten Hag out signs and placards being held up at all. No problem with the guy. I think he seems a decent fella. He's done a very good job last year. I think there's elements to his play that I like. You could see it yesterday. They were trying to, about 7 minutes into the second half, they were trying to pass out from the back, and there was some nice football being played, pinging it about within our own defensive third. It comes to Harry Maguire, and he, under no pressure at all, he just passes it straight to a commentary player. And I think that we haven't got the players to do what he wants to do, but nonetheless, you have to then adapt to your situation, and he's not good enough at doing that. We could argue forevermore he needs more players. I would completely agree, but he hasn't got those players. So who, in the circumstances that we've got, can do? Who's the best man for the job? And he's proven that he's not. Are they perfect circumstances? No, they're never going to be at United, not for a long, long time. We need someone who can put up with the fact that there are massive, massive problems and massive limitations to what you can do. But that's United, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's good enough to be able to overcome those limitations. So it isn't all on him, never has been. But yesterday was a turning point for me. Glazers out.